Okay, Mike.
Hello.
So we're going to tell everyone what's going on with the S13. So the biggest thing is we've got a new engine.
We have got a new engine.
It's not in there yet.
Why are you starting with the engine? The engine's not here, the engine's way over there.
But the engine is the reason that we've had to do all this.
Yeah, it is very true.
So this sorry hole used to house the SR20, which Michael loved dearly.
It did. It's a good engine.
So as you probably already know, we've gone for a 2JZ. The maybe possibly boring option, but it works really well.
Yeah, it's kind of a well-known engine. There's loads of parts for them. It's easy to get things, bits and pieces, parts, aftermarket accessories for them, and lots of people have done them in the past, so there's lots of information on what we want to achieve from them.
And S-body and 2JZ is probably one of the most winning combinations.
It's a well-known combination.
So obviously we did talk about doing a super duper SR.
We did.
So why did we go for the 2JZ in the end?
It's cheaper. I do like the SRs, and I like the idea of having a 2-litre 4-cylinder in the S-body. It works really well, the weight works really well, they handle nicely, but it just doesn't create the torque, the power delivery. I mean, no matter how much you do to it, even if it's 1,000 horsepower and like 10,000 RPM rev limit, still not got the low down grunt, no matter what you do to it, to make a competitive car. So, in my opinion anyway, there's going to be loads of people hating on that remark.
Yeah, feel free to slate them in the comments.
Feel free to slate me in the comments. So, the easier option was to go for a Toyota 2JZ engine.
Yeah, we'll talk about the actual engine in a minute. We'll look at the shell of the car. So there's a big empty hole here where the engine used to be. We've had to take pretty much every component off because the turbo and inlet are the opposite way around on the Toyota engines to the Nissan engines. So every component has got to move from right to left and left to right. We've learned a few things as well, haven't we? That we want to, how to lay things out, what's broken in the past, better way to doing things.
Yeah, as I'm quite well known for stoving my car into things, bits and pieces. Kind of learnt the hard way where to put stuff in an engine bay to keep you going on the day. Like our first drift events, would like have a light tap, and like that was the end of the day because like, the vital component was broken. And now we've kind of got ourselves to a stage where we know where we're putting stuff, and we know where stuff works, heat management, basically everything, what components to use as well in the car.
So having nothing in it, like so, obviously means there's nothing to break.
Yeah. You might be surprised.
So we've also gone for a rear mount radiator, based on the fact that the big 6-cylinder engine will come further forwards than the little 4-cylinder, and basically keep creating more heat at the front. We never really had a big problem with cooling on a competition, did we?
Not major,
but we probably
Mitsubis and stuff.
So we probably will now. So Michael's latest creation, which you may have come across on the internet.
This gigantic radiator.
What's the radiator from?
The radiator is a Toyota Supra radiator, aftermarket Nishimoto one, but it's to fit a Toyota Supra.
No.
Well, for this size because it's big. Basically, it's easy to get hold of enough one if we do break it or anything happens to it, and it's a very large core, so it should give us plenty of cooling.
And we've got these fancy ducts in the side with the horrible silver bolts that are there just as a temporary measure. And the idea of this is that it's going to feed into here, the cool air, and hopefully not overheat and melt and burn to the ground really. We've got a giant fan in the back as well. You can kind of see that in there.
Courtesy of Volvo, that fan. It's off a Volvo XC90, in fact, a large 4x4. It's big, pulls lots of air.
It's big and it should work. We're also going to put a external water pump in here, probably somewhere down here, because Mike's weight, shall we say, is going to be on the right hand side, so we want to load up the left as much as possible.
Can I say I'm fine? It's not very
As I'm trying to say. We also gone for a fiberglass rear end, courtesy of Fibre Factory.
Yeah, fantastic.
This is really good. We've been kicking it around the yard for months now, and
hit it with a sledgehammer.
Hit it with a sledgehammer.
You may have seen on my Facebook.
Yeah, and it hasn't broken yet. Do you want to pull a panel off so you can see underneath?
Yeah. There's not a lot there, I think, actually.
They're only temporarily fitted. We'll use more tape and cable ties.
Yeah. So that's one I flip. That's how flip. You wouldn't get that with most fiberglass.
Yeah. So we cut a lot of the structure out here because it was smashed, repaired and smashed repeatedly over a period of 3 seasons. We've gone for some springy bars.
Yeah, we were just going to have hoops welded on either side of these that we could replace, and then it was one evening and we just decided that why not put a spring in there. Might not work that well. I mean, that spring was £6 off eBay and is meant for a child's motorcycle. For a bit of fun, it might help. It probably won't.
So currently it's allowed in the rules for BDC. It was allowed in FD, but now it's not. That was to do with it breaking and falling off, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, people had all kinds of crazy contraptions, not quite as simple as this one. And obviously with loads of components smashing against the wall, eventually something's going to break and go away. And we're hoping with this, it's such a simple setup, there's only 2 components to it, that the whole thing's not going to break away. There's quite a big bolt holding that in there. So
and it's obviously put together quite well, which was done. Did you weld this or did Nick weld this?
Nick at Absolute Customs made this whole back end. He does all our tubular chassis works. He's got the pipe benders and machinery to do it.
And it's just around the corner, so we can harass him around there as easy as we want.
He likes harassment.
So if they decide that this is going to be banned in BDC, we can just unbolt the shock and put a steel bar in there, and then it works. It's not really to the the controversy of it really is that it's used to help you run the wall. This hasn't been built to help us run the wall. It's been helped to minimise damage when you hit the wall. So obviously you want to get as close to the wall as possible. The problem is that you've probably got to go a bit too far to find out how close that is. And the idea really is it's just going to take the hit and not fold the back end of the car in. It's going to kind of hit it and hopefully deform back to where it was. So there's not really any reason for it to kind of help you run the wall. It's just to minimise damage on the car. As you know, every round we are repairing quarter panels on this car. So with the super tough Fibre Factory rear end combined with this, we might only have to do it every other round. So that's kind of the back, how far we've got really. See, some of these bits have got a little bit of surface rust on, but the shell is going to be blasted and repainted before we do the final build. Inside is basically just a mess of ECU and wiring. We've just chucked it in there out of the way really, so we don't walk over it.
It's all the old wiring, just basically.
So this has all got to be redone because it would need to be modified so much for the new setup. We've changed so many things that it's just not going to work anymore, so it's easy just to start again. We have gone for a custom fuel tank that we have built, or Mike has built. I did nothing. And then the fuel pumps and bits are going to be down here, which we'll hopefully get onto later this week. The reason there's a big pipe coming out the fuel tank is that we can have the filler nozzle here, maybe?
There, roughly.
Around there. So it's quick and easy to fill up. Because it's very difficult to get to that and probably end up with fuel all over the interior, which will probably be on fire at some point as well, knowing our luck. However, we do have a nice plumbed in fire extinguisher, which we've never used. Thank God. Just in case that does happen, which everyone should have really. I mean, there's a lot of cars out there doesn't have it. But we definitely advise that with what we've seen. That's pretty much it with the car, isn't it really?
So far.
Let's go look at the shiny engine.
Let's go look at the shiny engine.
So behold the secret weapon.
Shiny-ish engine.
So this is a 2JZ VVTi from an Aristo, wasn't it? Yeah, Aristo. It's got one of the world's best manifolds on it, as you can see.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's kind of gone out of focus a bit there.
Oh.
I have to insert generic picture. I'm going for a Borg Warner EFR 8374 turbo, running twin external turbo smart gates. Why do we choose to run the EFR turbo?
We build quite a lot of manifolds for a lot of different variations of motorsport, from rallycross to touring cars and so on, loads of different stuff, and quite a popular turbo, especially for big bursts of power, is the Borg Warner. It's a very durable turbo. It's got really nice bearings in it. They work really well. Not very much lag with the twin scroll setup, and it's just a really nice large design.
Yeah, so they continue to be really durable, which is what we want. Previously we ran Garrett GTXs.
Yes.
They have no problems.
Yeah, no,
still
they're
the same
really
problem.
good turbo. Just on the 3 litre 6-cylinder, we just decided to step it up a bit and go for an even bigger turbo. So we can be combining it with the nitrous as well. So there should be a lot of gas pushing this thing around.
Yeah, still running pump fuel, I think is the plan, isn't it?
I think so. For the time being, pump fuel is the plan, but we'll see what happens when you get nearer to the start of the season.
So a few little other details. We've ditched the water pump in favour of the electric one that we briefly spoke about earlier. The alternator we are moving from left to right because it's away from the heat, and also works better with the wiring setup. It's kind of zip tied in place here from a little project we've got on the go, which you'll see details of soon. We've done a inlet manifold. Now this is an eBay inlet manifold.
Yeah, this is just your generic cheap eBay top cover, and really the only thing left of that eBay top cover is the original casting. I've spent days and days porting this thing out, and then mounting it to the original bottom half. The reason we didn't go for a fully fabricated item was basically cost of the build at the time. We wanted to see if this would work, use a slightly cheaper product that we knew that we could modify ourselves to make work. So that's what we've done, and we're going to see how well it works.
Yeah, so it doesn't work, we can change it, we hopefully get it done in time to do enough testing that we're going to find out. So really it came down to, we could have bought a very expensive one and bolted it on, or we bought a cheap one and spent our own time trying to make it work. Obviously we're quite poor, we spent all the money on the turbo, the manifold, the engine, the car, management, wiring looms, all sorts of stuff like that. So we thought we'd save a little bit of money where we can on things like that. We've had success in the past with that, haven't we? We're using kind of putting time and our expertise into components to make them work better. And obviously on the device of about 1,001 tuners. And then we've got a set of ASNU injectors in it. We've gone for a electronic throttle, so a drive-by-wire throttle setup. This is a throttle body off of a
Porsche Cayenne V8?
Cayenne V8 turbo, we think.
Yes.
Something along those lines anyway. It's nice and big. Got a throttle pedal out of a BMW mounted into the pedal box, which we'll show you next time. And really at the minute we're just waiting for the gearbox to arrive, along with the clutch setup, so that we can bolt the engine into the car, although we still have quite a lot of things to do with the actual chassis of the car. We're kind of getting there. I mean, what have we got left to do on it?
In the car itself, tidying, wiring loom,
finish the fuel system. So that we've got to start the wiring looms, the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and then we've got to finish the fuel system, and We've changed the driving position around, which
The actual seating position stayed the same, but we've moved the actual steering wheel up. When I originally built the car, the seat was mounted on the floor pan, on some strengthening plates in the floor pan. What we actually did about a year in is put some rails between the tunnel and the edge of the cage, just to make it stronger if you had an impact on that side. And that
was likely.
Very likely. Which meant the seat was actually raised up by a couple of inches. At the time we didn't have time to take everything apart and move the steering column position, so that's one thing we've done this year, is to move it up to it's much more comfortable basically to drive.
Yeah, a lot of people comment when they sit in the car that they can't fit in properly, which was Matt Carter's gripe when he borrowed the car and broke the gearbox.
Yeah.
Couldn't quite get in it, so we changed the seat. I think, was that what we did, change the seat to get in it?
Yeah, we had to put a smaller seat to get in there.
It seems to suit Mike alright, but we've changed it now so anyone can drive it. And then we've got the fancy water pump pipe that you made.
Yeah, so that's, we've got two pipes actually we've made. This is in the middle of being done at the minute, so that connects to there. There'll be a hose fitting here, and the hose will run back there. Same on this one, the hose just connects onto there and runs back. Then you've got your fittings for your turbo, and then a bleed from the top here.
Yeah, so it's all part of removing the water pump, which would usually sit kind of here. No thermostat, because the electric water pump takes care of that job for you. It's a pretty cool piece of kit, the electric water pump.
Yeah,
it's good. They're not actually as expensive as you'd think for that, with a controller and bits. So it seemed like a good option. Get a bit rid of a drag off the engine.
Yeah.
Or water pump, so more power going forwards.
Yeah, a part of that is we were talking about the alternator earlier. We've had to upgrade from the original JZ alternator, which has a power output of around 90 amps. There are quite a few options you can go for when choosing a bigger alternator. We went for a BMW 3 Series alternator?
It's a 1 Series diesel.
1 Series diesel alternator, which has an output of 220 amps, and that should be more than enough to power all the
yeah, so we've got a bigger fan, we've got electric water pump, electric power steering as well.
Yeah.
I think that's mostly it. So a few more things to power than last year, but we wanted to make sure an alternator was up to the job. The reason we chose that alternator was because, again, it doesn't cost a lot of money, and on paper it should work. If it doesn't, then it's a fairly easy change to just bolt a aftermarket high-powered alternator on, but they cost 10-12 times the price of this one.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd try this first, and I'm sure we'll quickly find out if it's good enough or not. That's pretty much it then, isn't it? So,
I think so.
We'll check in again in a week or so and see how far we've got with the rest of it.
Give you another update when the shiny gearbox turns up.